Hi everyone, welcome to the Lost and Found Tarot channel. Today's episode we are going to talk about the Westfield Watcher. This is a fairly recent urban legend. It's certainly not one that I grew up with hearing about back when I was a kid. This one occurred, I think, beginning in 2014, and it happened in Westfield, New Jersey. To the owners of this house, 654 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey. And when they moved in, well, actually, they didn't even get a chance to move in because they started getting creepy letters from someone who is obviously considered to be the Westfield Watcher. And these letters were written with some disturbing references to their children. A lot of references to things like young blood, secrets in the walls, phrases like, allow me to watch you and track you through the house. Super, super creepy stuff. So most people, when they move into a new neighborhood, they expect there's probably going to be some weird neighbors. And I find me a neighborhood that doesn't have that. But no one ever expects that they're going to receive creepy threatening letters before they even move in. So I'm going to show you a picture of the house as it is, or at least as it was when Google Maps took this photo. As you can see, it is a really nice neighborhood. That was one of the features or a detail in the article that I read about this, a very long article actually, if we go back to it. This is written in the Cut. It wasn't that long ago, maybe a week or two, September 19th. Yeah, so pretty recent. So this occurred around 2014. Apparently it's been going on for years. They don't know who the Watcher is. They've involved the police. They've involved some private investigators. They tried to call on their neighbors for help. It became a super tangled, awful saga of people turning on each other. To this date, they did not find who the Watcher is. So, I encourage you to go read this article if you are at all interested in it. It will take you through pretty much the entire story. There's always more to a story than we have access to, but I think this article kind of does a really great job of laying out as much publicly available information as possible on the topic. So I chose this one to read on with tarot because I think it resonates a little bit. So I too have kids and I live in a neighborhood. When you move into a place, you're always wondering what kind of place, it looks nice on the outside. Like, look at this gorgeous neighborhood. But you never really know who the people are who live around you. You don't really know the history of the house. You're walking into an entirely new situation. So I have a lot of empathy for what that family was going through. And it would be extremely terrifying to receive those type of letters and threats in the mail when they reference, the most precious things in the world to you, like your children. So what do I want to accomplish with this? I don't know. I'm hoping to reveal or at least illuminate some identifying feature of the letter writer. Because what they've done, they've sown so much chaos, whoever they are. Whether they're one person, whether they're multiple people, we don't know. But if they intend to continue, that's something I think we can ask the collective about. And the collective being like, however you want to view it. The universe, angels, cosmos, gods, whoever. I don't really view it like that. It's more of like just that general intelligence that we're all connected to. So we're going to use tarot as the vehicle for that. If you're familiar with tarot, it is a system of cards with symbols that give you information on a visual. And sometimes, depending on your particular psychic gifts, it can trigger messages coming in another way. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is that we have an intention to find information, and we are going to use a specific tool available to us to do that. So in front of you is a modified Celtic cross. The intention is to find more information about who the Westfield Watcher is. And as you can see, I modified the positions a little bit to help bring us to that point. So Card position 1 and 2 is our situation and crossing. This never changes. This is going to be our control. If this appears to be correct, we can assume that we have information that is useful in the following cards. Card 3 will be the goal of the letter sender. What is it that they wanted or want, if they're still around? Card position 4 will be the past of the home. This is usually the recent past, but for this one, because the writer made weird references to things in the walls and having been in the home and stuff like that, let's see if there's anything about the house itself that we should know that might be relevant. Card position 5 is going to be what the watcher expects. So card position 6 is usually the near future. So for this, I would like to ask it what can be done to find the writer of the letters. Card position 7 will be what is going on below the surface. This works with card position 9, what's happening above the surface. This might be another verification type of card that shows us something confirming what we're seeing. Card position 8 is usually the environment or the surroundings. And because the Celtic cross is an ancient spread, it can be relied on for most of these fixed positions. While I can change them a little bit, I still have to keep the essence the same. So when I modify this one, what I would like it to tell me is there an identifying feature of the letter writer, either their appearance or their surroundings? And finally, card position 10 is our outcome. Will the writer send more threats? So let's see what comes out of this. I'm going to close this up and go meditate for a little bit on the topic, shuffle, and then cast the spread. When I come back, I'm going to show you what cards came out, and perhaps we can together see if there is something useful in from the spread that can help us figure out who it is. I'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back. I just shuffled and meditated on the subject of our spread, and then I cast it on my table here. So now what I've done is, instead of making you sit through that, I put it up on screen here using my editor. Not my editor, but it's one that I use. It's super handy. It's got lots of decks in it, but that's a topic for a different time. Anyway, what you see in front of you is what came out based on the spread plan that we were just looking at. So we can tell that from our first and second cards here, so card position 1 and card position 2, we have the 2 of Cups and the 2 of Pentacles reversed. These are our verification cards. So we do see that there are 2 people, possibly the Broadduses, entering into the agreement to buy the house. So we have that negotiation, the energy exchanges, and all of those things relate to buying any kind of property. Now that we have it crossed by the 2 of Pentacles reversed, we feel that never-ending feeling. It's generally one of an ongoing struggle. We have multiple concerns affecting their reality, and nothing they do seems to make any difference at all. It is that sense of drowning, and with the 2s, there's usually something they're trying to figure out. So that is 100%, I think, and again, not being personally involved in this at all, but from what we've seen, what we've read, we can tell that that is definitely the case here. So having these 2 cards come out showing us that, we can hopefully rely on the rest of the spread and what came out of that to tell us more truth, because we've consulted with the intelligence through tarot. So card position 3. So for this, we wanted to know what was the goal of the letter sender, the letter writer. And this one, 10 of Pentacles reversed, there is a longing for what they don't have. Their goal was to make the new owners uncomfortable in their new home. One figure we can see, and if this were upright, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. So over here, there's some unique symbols in this card, but we do see one figure whispering to another one out of distance from the other people. I mean, it's not like super close the way you might whisper in a room to somebody, but we can tell that there is some sort of concealing effort here. So, generally that's things that are not said too loudly. And unique features of this card include that older bearded man, We've got the coat of arms here. Those denote family legacy and ancestry. We have pets. We have art, heirlooms. The letter writer clearly wished to deny them any sense of security in their home. And the sense of safety is definitely a basic human need. So that is why this card in particular came out for this. For card position 4, we wanted to know if this house has a past. So I'm getting not the house from this, but the letter writer has built up the house in their mind to be something of incredible importance. And this is a really deceiving card because while it looks very severe, so if this is the first time you ever flip this card and the first time you've ever seen this card, you're not getting anything nice out of it, right? Because it just doesn't have any positive imagery. But that's why it's deceiving, because it's actually a very freeing card. And I'll tell you why. One, ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is basically the Santa Claus of all the planets. And I'm a terrible astrologer. Actually, I'm not an astrologer at all, but I am crap with it. I'll be upfront about that. But what I do know about Jupiter, it is very benevolent. It's a planet of blessings. When you see something coming from Jupiter, you know that someone has your best interests at heart. So when we have Jupiter coming through this card, swords are air, that's our thoughts. We're showing us a situation or thought pattern that we've made for ourselves that we have the ability to get out of. All we need to ask ourselves is there something I can do? So if the writer lost access to the home in the past, there's a psychic scaffolding in place that's causing them this obsession. So card position 5 up here being the 9 of Cups reversed. I'm not sure how relevant this card is for this question. I should have thought of this when I was planning out the spread. It is a little redundant. I'm not getting anything new from this. All I see is that there's anger coming off of this card. Other than that, it's not really showing, like the usual things aren't really applying here. So we're going to move on from card position 5 because I'm not really getting anything other than that putrid energy. So card position 6, I wanted it to tell us what can be done to find the writer of these letters. And what's interesting is that our Queen of Pentacles is showing us vulnerability and insecurity. We either have to go through everything again. So imagine that you had all of your details and your investigative materials in front of you. Imagine that you had to start over. Go pretend you're beginning from the very start. Forget everything you know, because there is something important that has been lost in the mess. The writer did make a mistake somewhere. They are aware of it. They know that there is something someone has asked or observed in the past that could expose them. So what can be done now in order to find this is to maybe start from scratch. Imagine dumping every detail into a box and then pulling them out one at a time and being very meticulous about it. That might be the key here. Now we go to the arm of the spread, and usually it's supposed to be a straight line, but here I have a kind of zigzag just because visually it's kind of, I'd have to scroll a little bit further, but this is 7, 8, 9, and 10. So let's start with 7. So below the surface. So this is telling us things that are happening out, like behind closed doors, in people's minds. We have evaluations and stock taking. So this makes sense because while most of the neighborhood was unaware of these goings on, they were at that time being considered as suspects. So without their awareness, they were being judged by the parties in the know in terms of how likely they were to be the writer or have knowledge of that. So that was happening below the surface. Card position 8, this is the most important card of the spread, because what we're hoping for here is an identifying feature of the letter writer's appearance or surroundings. So for this one, the imagery of the card and a lot of what makes this card unique are important here. So we have the Hierophant, and let's talk about some of the features of the Hierophant. So this is he who proclaims what is sacred. And I say he, but it doesn't have to be. It's just the person Traditionally, this has always been a male figure. Let's not get into that, but let's just leave it here. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a he, but in writings, that's what this person is considered to be, the person who proclaims what is sacred, who decides what is important. We have the staff with 2 crosses. We have pillars, keys, lilies and roses here. Traditionally, this is the card of the teacher, the spiritual advisor, an intermediary between the earthly and the divine, or someone who presides over others in some way. Other keywords: earth, Venus, Taurus, tradition, convention, conservatism. From Benabel Wen, I was looking at one of my books earlier, and something that seemed important to mention, I don't know if it is at all, but sometimes what feels important at the time is worth noting. From Benabel Wen, she writes, the Hierophant suggests conformity as prevailing impulse. So with that, in combination with some of the feelings off the other cards, we get that sense of concealment, hiding certain aspects of the self that are counter to the norm. And those qualities could describe all sorts of people and not necessarily correspond to anyone in particular. That said, when I asked the intelligence that comes through tarot to show us all, not just me, but you, anyone who shares an interest in solving this mystery, something about the letter writer that is a distinguishing quality. And even if I feel like I know who it was, I'm not going to say it here. Card position 8, above the surface. So this is for all to see. We have the external influences that signal the end or a need to conclude something. And of course, anyone who's familiar with tarot of the system, this is not going to come as a surprise at all. The family that intended to move in and make their lives here in 2014 were forced to adapt to their situation by ending it. They were not the initiators of the change. It came from the writer of the threatening letters. It came from the lack of support from their community, including the police and their own neighbors, the people that we all hope have our backs when we're in distress. Something beyond them brought them to their knees, and they had no choice in the end but to concede defeat and move on. Finally, our King of Swords is showing us that the Watcher is still watching. The ruler of the airwaves, this king keeps tabs on everything written, everything spoken and transmitted through the air. This person has many sources to feed them details that most of us just wouldn't have. They may hold a position of power or have influence that they try to conceal, so trying to keep a low profile. They might is the key. Might is always the key word when it comes to this. They do have the ability to send more letters, but this is not necessarily a definitive yes, they will. It just means that they are still watching. That is definitely the final, I guess if we had to put a punctuation mark here, that's the period. So that is the spread for the Westfield Watcher of 657 Boulevard. As of the end of September in 2022, this is what has come out with respect to that. In the context of the spread that I put out for it. So the question that I asked, this is how it is answering it at that time. If anyone out there looks at this, sees this, I'm going to scroll out a little bit, because for you, the viewer, you can actually, I created this as well so that you could read it yourself. Usually you're not supposed to, you really shouldn't read another a spread cast by somebody else, but in this case I definitely want you to, because there is something here for us. There's something for us, the people who are interested in getting to the bottom of it. And if you spend some time looking at it, if you have a deck of cards similar to this, maybe you could put that down, replicate the spread on your own table and see if there is something that comes off of it that gives you something. However, sorry, I got off on a tangent there, but what I really meant to say is that if there is something here that gives you an insight that could identify a particular person of interest in this case, I cannot beg you harder to not say the names of any real people, especially here. Please don't comment with, I think it's so-and-so. That can be incredibly damaging. We do not intend with our investigation to ever put somebody under scrutiny who does not deserve to be. So if you think you know who the person is, who should be spoken to perhaps by police, certainly not by any of us, because we're just regular people who have good intentions, and we have to be careful about what we say and do. So we're going to do that here, definitely. But if you do get an insight that gives you a feeling for who it might be, please let the police know, because they are realistically the only ones who can use that information, that intelligence properly. I'm not a police officer. I don't understand the best way to go about using that information. But all I can do as a reader is try to access it and provide it to the people who can use it best. So I would encourage you to do that as well. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, and I hope you got something off of this. I certainly did, and as I said earlier in the video, I am very interested in seeing this conclude one way or another, because no family deserves to be subject to those types of threats. Anyway, I hope you have a great day, and come back for another video, hopefully sometime in the near future.